up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to do a half and half, each side of my face, one-to-one comparison of the Norvina palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills versus the Soul Blooming palette from Nabla Cosmetics. I've seen a lot of people make comparisons of these over the last few weeks on the internet, and since I have both of them, I figured why not truly put it to the test and swatch all the colors that I think are comparable next to each other on my arm, and then use a bunch of those colors to try to create comparable looks on one eye and the other eye accordingly. As far as the price is concerned, these are almost identical. The price of the Nabla Soul Blooming palette is listed on their website in euros because they're an Italian brand, but when I converted it to US dollars, it equaled $41.94, which is just 6 cents away from the price of the Norvina palette, which is 42 US dollars. Now keep in mind though that the Norvina palette does have 14 shades while the Nabla palette has 12. To be honest though, I think that the shades that are extras in the Norvina palette are kind of like the negligible shades, like they're not the more exciting ones. So if you are looking for like the more exciting colors, you're not gonna miss anything with the smaller palette here, you know what I mean? We have a lot to put to the test here, one-to-one right next to each other. So I think the best way to start is with some arm swatches so you can see what colors I think would be comparable and how they compare when they're swatched next to each other. And then from those shades, I'm going to create a look on my eyes, one on each side. Before we get started, please don't forget to hit that like button if you don't mind, because it really helps me out and I would super appreciate it. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button because you might forget later and then we'll both be sad and I would hate that. So go ahead and do that and let's get started. So I'm going to do my left eye with Soul Blooming, and I'm going to do my right eye with the Anastasia Norvina palette. I'm going to use the colors that we swatched on my arm so that we can see how they compare on the eye and not just next to each other as swatch, because, you know, sometimes swatches don't tell the whole story. As a matter of fact, with eyeshadow, I think swatches actually tell very little of the story. So I'm going to put a cream color through my crease. On the Norvina palette, I'm going to choose the color Base. And from the Soul Blooming palette, I'm going to use the color Chamomile. And I'm doing that on the same brush. I'm just cleaning it off on a color switch sponge in between. So that way we have like no differentiation between like, oh, but you applied that with a different brush, so it might have applied differently. No, we do same because science. Next, I'm going to put a little definition through the crease with a matte brown shade. From the AVH palette, I'm going to use Incense on a MAC 217 brush. And on the Soul Blooming side, I'm going to use Middle Karma. For the lid itself, I'm going to use the main focus purple periwinkle shades in these palettes because I know that especially with the Norvina palette, that's the one that caught my eye and made me like, ooh, this palette could be a little bit fun. So obviously we want to make that the focal point because it's important. So for the Anastasia side, I'm going to go into the color Soul on another clean MAC 217 brush. I have a funny feeling that I'm not going to like this that much because this color is not matte. It has like a little bit of satin in it. Yeah, I feel like it's going to emphasize the texture on my lid, but we're going for it anyway because like what else are we supposed to do? Oh, you know what? That's actually not as bad as I expected. Okay. Yeah, right. definitely has some satininess to it though, that is for sure. And for the left eye, for the Nabla palette, I'm going to use the shade Flowery. These are actually much more similar in shade on the eye than they look like they would be in the pan, but the Anastasia one is definitely darker and this one is definitely matte. I like this one a lot better. I want to put a little bit of a peach shade through the crease right over that brown, as a matter of fact, because the brown will deepen it up, but the peachy shade will kind of make it a little bit more interesting. So for the ABH side, I am going to go with the shade Love, again on a MAC 217. And for the Nabla side, we're going to go into the shade Bolero. Why did my concealer just come off in like a huge chunk on my cheek? What the? Alright, I gotta be honest, so far this was looking so much more similar than I was expecting it to. I'm a little shook. I'm like, how did it look so different in the pan and on my arm? But like when I blend everything together, that shit looks like the same. It looks, I mean, this is a little darker, definitely a little bit more satin all around. The Bolero shade on this side, a little brighter so far, but like, damn, that's like, I could go out in public and not be like, I'm wearing two different eye looks right now, you know? Okay, I'm gonna brighten the inner corner a little bit with some iridescent purple. For the ABH side, I'm gonna use the shade Celestial on a Sigma E30 pencil brush, and I am going to put that on the pencil brush and then dampen it with some Fix Plus. And for the Nabla side, I'm going to go into Garden Gate. I expect that these two are going to look a bit different because Garden Gate has a little bit more of like a blue-green reflect in there, so I'm thinking it's going to show up different. But we shall see. Yeah, with this one, you definitely see a big difference between the two colors. To highlight the inner corner, I'm going to grab the more champagne-y shades in each palette. From Norvina, I'm going to grab Dreamer on a MAC 219S pencil brush. From the Nabla palette, I'm going to grab Honey Drip. Pretty sure because of the unique texture of Honey Drip that these are going to look fairly different. Not as different as I expected, actually. I want to blur the lower lash line with a very similar color to what we put in the crease here, so I'm going to start with that salmon shade from each palette this time. So from the ABH side, we're going back into Love. And for the Soul Blooming side, we're going back into Bolero on the same brush. I want to deepen up the outer area of the crease and also underneath the lash line. So for the ABH side, I'm going to go into Passion on a MAC 221S brush. And for the Nabla side, I'm going to use Caravaggio. I'm just going to finish the eyes with some mascara, lashes, simple stuff like that. That is not from these two palettes, and then we'll zoom in and assess what we think of each eyeball. So I put some liner on, I put on the House of Lashes Allura Light Lashes, and the eyes are done. So let's zoom in and take a look at how they compare close up and personal. It's pretty hard to tell a very definite difference between the two, but a couple of things that I did notice. Because the mattes in this palette are not quite matte, they're more of a matte with a little bit of a satin finish to them, that actually kind of makes it look less blended. Mattes don't emphasize texture as much, so it looks like a lot more smooth. It does end up being easier to make it look more blended with the Soul Blooming palette than with the Anastasia Norvina palette. The colors on the Soul Blooming side, generally speaking, seem to be a little bit more rich. They definitely pop more. The peachy pink shade Bolero from the Soul Blooming palette definitely has a little bit more brightness and more of like an exciting tone to it than the Love shade from the Norvina palette. Those are pretty minute little differences. Overall, I think that it created a very like shockingly similar look. In my opinion, the biggest difference was between the purple colors that I put on the inner portion. So on this eye, that was the color Celestial for the Norvina palette. And on this eye, it was Garden Gate from Soul Blooming. They obviously have a very different shift, even though they look similar, not even that similar, but like sort of like in the same family in the pan. In application, those are not the same at all. But truly, honestly, overall, as far as creating this look is concerned, they were pretty comparable. Like, way more comparable than I was actually expecting them to be, because while I was expecting them to be similar, it looked different enough in the pan and different enough swatch that I was thinking like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to take this off. I will not be able to wear this for the rest of the day. But truthfully, I think I'm gonna just leave this for the rest of the day, because I don't think that anybody would notice unless they were like really in my grill checking my shit out. So now for the hard part, which one is better? So they're pretty much exactly the same price, except they're not quite the same price per gram or the same price per shadow, because the Norvina palette has 14 shades, while the Soul Blooming palette has 12. So if you're going on price alone, the Norvina palette is a better deal. And it also, because it will be coming to Ulta and Sephora in the States, will probably be most accessible to most of you, because I know most of my audience is based in the US and Canada. So for most of you guys, the Norvina palette is probably going to be easier to get your hands on. However, out of the two of them, the one that I like more is the Nabla Soul Blooming Palette. There are some shades inside the Norvina palette that I really like a lot. I really like Rose Gold. I also really like Wild Child and Celestial. I think there are really beautiful shades in here, but as far as how they perform, I think that Soul Blooming is a little bit better. They blend it out a little bit easier, partially because there are a lot in the Norvina palette that are not quite matte shades. They're more of a satin, and on me, with my not perfectly smooth eyelids, generally something matte always is more flattering and easier to make look more blended, etc, etc. I also feel like the colors in the Soul Blooming palette, the brighter colors, they tend to keep their punch a little bit more when blended out, whereas the ones in the Norvina palette, they didn't become muddy, but they definitely became more muted as I mixed them all together. And the Soul Blooming side, I feel like it stood up to blending a little bit more while each color kept its own integrity. I also feel like while the Norvina palette has some fun shades in it, I think the Soul Blooming palette is definitely more interesting, because it does have that shade Honey Drip that has that little bit of an interesting texture to it, and the colors that are interesting in the palette do have more punch than the comparable colors in the Norvina palette. It definitely lends itself to be a little bit more fun and like I don't know, something special than the colors in the Norvina palette do. It's a little tiny bit less safe. Neither of these palettes are that out there, but of the two, the Soul Blooming is a little tiny bit more adventurous. Personally, I also like the packaging of Soul Blooming better. I like that it is a smooth packaging, so if it gets dirty, you can clean it off. It also has like a really nice kind of like little retro flower print on it. I really like it. I think it's very classy looking. I love the way the Norvina palette looks, but like I said in my previous video about this palette with the 3 looks, it's beautiful when you first get it, but it gets dirty so goddamn fast, and it makes me really upset. Like, it does. I know that sounds like really dramatic, but like, I don't know, you spend money on something, you want it to look nice for a long time, and so that bothers me. So the packaging on this one definitely wins. So overall, I think if you have one of these palettes, you probably don't need the other one. If you have neither of these palettes and you're like, which one do I buy? I think I would personally go with Soul Blooming. I don't think you're going to dislike either of them. I think they're both great, but I just think Soul Blooming is a little better. So I'm glad I did this comparison, because, you know, I didn't really think they were that similar at first, but the more people said it, the more I was like, you know what? They really are. And hello, they really are. I would love to know what you guys think though. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you have either of these palettes, if you have your eye on one or the other. Which one do you think looks better? Which one do you like better if you have both of them? And are you planning on getting either of them? Please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, because that really helps me out and I would super duper appreciate it. And also, if you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe to see more videos in the future. And you can also, if you're like really dedicated to making sure that you see my videos when they get uploaded, hit the notification bell and make sure it's turned to all, so you'll always know exactly when I upload a new video. And if you think maybe you're gonna miss your friend Nicole between videos, please don't forget to go follow me on social media. I am at Miss Quidface on every platform. My favorite platform is Instagram. I post all of my makeup looks over there. I post lip art over there. And I'm always putting stuff on my stories, behind the scenes stuff, unboxings of the PR packages that I get. Also Q&As lately, now that they have that questions thing, that has been so much fun, and you guys are hilarious. I see so many boring questions out there on Instagram stories, and I ask you guys to ask me anything, and you come through with like really bizarre would you rathers and stuff, and it's very funny, and I enjoy it very much. I'll list it here on the screen, but it'll also be in the description down below, but I'm just at Miss Quinface everywhere, so if you ever want to find me, you know where I am. That's all for today. Thank you for hanging out while we did this comparison. I'll see you in the next one.